Live now, Chair.
Okay, right, good morning. I'm Councillor William Jerry, the chairman of the Performance Scrutiny Committee people. We're here this morning, live and hybrid. So I need to read this to you. It's a little bit of information. The Scrutiny Committee is being conducted in a hybrid basis in accordance with the Local Government Elections Wales Act 2021. Can I remind members that we are being live streamed to the public, and can I request those at home to switch off their cameras, mute your microphones until you are called to speak. And I also remind all members that we are governed by the standing orders and code of conduct will apply at all times, virtually as well as it does in this room, and that will be in accordance with the statutory rules and regulations of this authority. As well as being live broadcast, the recorded version will be made available to members of the public as soon as possible after this meeting, and a Welsh translation of it can be provided upon request. Good morning and thank you. Item 1, apologies.
We've got apologies for Councillor Chair.
No other apologies. Item 2, declarations of interest. No. Item 3 on pages 3 to 10, minutes of the previous meeting. We've all had a chance to look at these. Do we have a mover? And a seconder? Thank you. Item 4. This is the prevention and inclusion update on pages 11 to 34. We have the required officers here this morning and the author, which is Caroline. Thank you. If you could take us through this, and what we propose to do is to let you take us through it, and maybe we can ask questions after, because there are some explanations that may be needed. So thank you, Caroline, if you could.
If I can just explain a little bit first and just set the context to how we've come to be, really. Just to say thank you very much for the opportunity to provide these updates and information of this new service area. It's the very beginning for this new service area. We've only been in place for about 12 months now, and the focus in the last 5 months has been very much about bringing all the team into it, so that we could actually start to build and go forward. So that's been the focus, because that's been the critical part to get it going. And it's been really important to get that right, to make sure that we work closely with HR and finance to bring the teams over, but also the workforce with us. So it's been really important to get that right, spend the right amount of time with people, support them, listen to them, you know, if they've got any concerns or queries. And just welcome them into social services, and we've been giving them opportunities to meet with myself and Sally and to kind of welcome them, and so, you know, I can actually say that has been largely positive, and the feedback from the workforce is largely that they feel really happy to be part of social services, and they feel they're very passionate about their services. They feel really happy to be part of social services and feel that their services are now in the right place, much more closer to the children and adults, and can be far more integrated in how we work. So that's gone really, really well. The report that I produced is just very much, which we'll go through now, very much an overview of what services form prevention and inclusion right now. There's more work to be done, and going forward there will be more teams and services that will join prevention and inclusion, and in many ways get to the point where we have a very clear service area that has a very clear preventative and early intervention and inclusive for Newport Council and for the residents of Newport. So it's a work in progress, but I think we're pleased to say it's been a successful 12 months so far. The report I've put together will show you who's in the service area right now, and it provides a narrative, a brief narrative, because I could write pages and pages about every single area, but it provides a brief narrative on what is available from each area, and some information on numbers, bits of data. It's not a comprehensive data set. That will come in the next report. It's just not, we're still working on pulling some of those sort of systems together and making sure we've got all of that in the one place. Work in progress, we're nearly there, but the second report will have much more details about data sets and impact, really, because that's the bit I'm interested in, impact and outcomes for the residents of Newport. So if I just take you through the report, is that okay? And perhaps we can do it in sections where people then can ask them at the end. At the end, okay. Okay, so if I take you through, I simply, you know, prevention and inclusion means different things to different people, and I find it would be important to just set the scene in terms of what we're working with and what our understanding and definition of prevention and inclusion is, and really just how legislation, although it's not, you know, we're not talking about core statutory services in terms of adult services and children's services. However, prevention and preventative approaches are embedded within key legislation, Social Services and Wellbeing Act, Future Generations Wellbeing Act, aware of that. So it's not that we're just pulling it out of the air, it's absolutely embedded within legislation, and all local authorities are required to make sure we've got a robust preventative offer that fits with that front door for advice, information and assistance from local authorities. So it's really, I'm thrilled, I have to say, that Newport have been quite forward thinking in putting this new service area together. It's quite unique in my view, and it's not been put in place elsewhere apart from one or two local authorities. But it is an opportunity to bring everything together under one roof, so that we're working much better together, collaborating, and it allows us to address issues of duplication, improve seamlessness of services for residents, and look at the multiple pathways that residents have to work through to get to the right services. Streamline all of that and make it much easier, much more simpler and much smarter for everybody involved. So the introduction on prevention and inclusion is very much about what it's all about, where we sit within legislation as well. Section 3 then talks about the activity in the past 12 months, which I've already alluded to. We came to be as part of a new restructure, a service area restructure, and directorate, senior management restructure and directorate restructure. And that was led by the Chief Executive, Bev Owen. So as part of getting to know, you know, in many ways it was a two-way process, I guess. It was part of teams and services coming over, and all now, okay, we're all working closer together and getting to know each other. It was also important for us as managers to get to know them. So Sally and I have undertaken visits out and about to get to know what that provision looks like, what their experiences are, and hear from the staff directly. And they've been, you know, they've been positive and they've been welcomed by staff. And we've got some more visits coming up in this spring that are just being put together right now. So that's been quite important. So it's just allowed us also a chance to kind of, I think, take time, take some stock on what we've already got in Newport. And I think Newport is fair to say it's rich in service provision in terms of preventative services, whether they're internal to local authority or whether they're external partners. But I think what people would always say is actually there was some work to be done to make sure we improve how we work together, be smarter, so the families are not working with lots of different services all at one time. That's not helpful for them. They get fed up, they get frustrated, and it really isn't a smart use of resources either. So that, you know, bringing it all together afford lots of benefits to improve not just the experiences for residents of Newport, but actually at the local authority and working with our partners and key stakeholders, how we actually how we set out our house really in terms of our resources and how we're utilising what we've got. The systematic work possible.
Yeah. You know. Those wondering what's happened, we've got it's like living with someone who's going to tell you rather loud next door to you, and you're saying, "Turn it down." Tell you about something. It's yeah. So and then we can pick up some from there and do apologise, but we couldn't keep it with that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So still in that section 3, just, you know, a large part of the prevention and inclusion service area is made up of the children and community grant, the Welsh Government grant. And that is very much focused on working with the most vulnerable families and children in our community. So, well, we've got a list of services. We've got things like Blind Start, we've got Play, we have youth services, we have the prevention team. These are all funded largely from the children and community grant. So that forms a real big bulk of the service area. And then we have separate provision from substance misuse and disabled facility grant, which I'll talk to about that. So it's all about trying to.
I don't think so. Yeah. It's just a different audio.
Audio. Excuse me. Yeah, they've turned it up. Can we pause this live stream because I need to be able to concentrate here, and this is a vitally important sure. Thank you for coming back now. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but that has been sorted. Thank you. Let's continue if you can.
Thank you very much. I'll just move on to section 4 now of the report, where it just takes us very quickly into the different areas and teams that exist and the prevention and inclusion. So we have the prevention team. A significant note on that one is that that has now been merged with another team that existed, the ACES team, and what we're doing is we're building and strengthening the areas of good practice within there, and having a far greater reach with some wider the other services within the service area now. So that's been a really positive merger of two services, almost doing similar things, lots of duplication, so pull that together, and we're now able to go forward with one strong team together. That's been successful. At the heart of the prevention team, it was noting that the space wellbeing panel, which people may be familiar with, but that is almost the front door for prevention and inclusion services for lots of our services, not all of them, but lots of them, particularly the families first services. And so it's the equivalent of our front door to safeguarding help for children's services and adult services. All referrals go through there, and we have a multi-agency panel of professionals who will look at the referrals and will consider which is the right agency respond to that referral based on the information presented. So what we're trying to do is have a central point, hold everything together, and make sure that referrals are not bouncing around to numerous organisations. The prevention team and the rest of family first services are very much at the heart of that space wellbeing panel, which I must add is a partnership with health, and a very strong partnership we have with health as well. Prevention team also manages the early intervention project, which is a really interesting project where it responds very promptly, very quickly within a 2-day time frame to police public protection notices that come in from the police. So ordinarily PPN would be submitted by the police if they've been out on a call and they've got concerns about an adult or a child. They would submit a PPN. Now there's a criteria around who will get a response from those. But what we do is we pick up those referrals that ordinarily would not receive a service or wouldn't meet the criteria. So we are now responding to a whole population of people who perhaps wouldn't have had support from support services, but would be known to the police. So what we're trying to do is bridge that gap there as well. That's a really positive partnership with the Office of Police and Crime Commissioner. So we've got some information there about what the prevention team does and that. Youth and play is another key area for prevention and inclusion. We've talked a little bit about what they've been doing for the last 12 months. Previously, they've been working in more of a geographical approach, and what we've spent time on is looking at building a citywide provision now, where there is consistency of provision across the council, across the Newport, wanting to make sure that we improve our reach and have more presence and visibility out in the communities, out on the street, and particularly when we think about areas around antisocial behaviour and hotspots that are causing concerns in communities. We want to be able to have an assertive outreach team that can respond and be out there, be visible, and build those links and relationships up with those local communities. So that's very much a work in progress. We've had a huge amount of recruitment issues with youth services in place, and so that's a national issue again. Similar with social workers, getting qualified youth workers in is taxing, and what we're trying to do is set in place a development and training plan where we're almost building our own, growing our own staff from people who may not be qualified, but supporting them through into training and qualification so that we've got a sustainable workforce going forward. So they have made some strides in terms of increasing provision across the city in the last 12 months. We've looked a long way to go still. We just need to get more staff in place and get them out into the areas safely where they can work in safe numbers. Early years team is a huge area. Again, this is the blind start area, and also the early years transformation work that we're doing, which is trying to bring a greater integrated way of working with children, not from 0 to 4, but expand it up to 0 to 7, and that is involving joint working with how midwifery, speech and language therapists, etc. So that's really kind of building on the model of blind start, but expanding it up to 7 years of age. Blind start is growing enormously. We've already had an expansion phase for blind start, phase 1, which commenced in September last year, and phase 2 is now about to start in April, where essentially it's going out to more communities across Newport. The first section, 2A, will include all 4 elements of blind start, and the second part of phase 2 will just focus on the childcare element. Combined, we're talking about an additional up to about 400 children accessing play provision, support provision around childcare, speech and language, etc., etc. And it's not just children. A lot of the work that they do also focuses on helping parents within their parenting skills and their understanding of their own child development. So it's not just focused on the child; it's also the parental provision as well. And then moving on swiftly to my report down to the next one, which is for the adaptation team. They're thrilled to be with us actually, because they've really now started to get some really creative thinking about how they can work with families in the community differently, and how they can, what sorts of equipment can help people to remain independent, to remain in their own homes, in a way that moves more from the traditional aids and adaptation, where we talk about rails and ramps. We're trying to be as creative as we can when we're talking about people with mental health issues, for example. How do we put in support there with any aids and adaptation for them to remain well at home? And that might be something like technology, laptop of some sort, if it helps them to access particular resources, if it can pass well. So it's thinking differently and thinking about how we can use our resources in a different way that really get into people's homes, keeps them at home much longer, really, and keeps them well and healthy. So that's really the service that does all the aids and adaptations for people who have got additional needs or disabilities and they need support to stay at home. That one, and there's a little bit there about impact and numbers of adaptations that have been undertaken. And then finally, that brings us to the substance misuse service. Newport is the lead and the banker for the area planning board, which is the board that governs the substance misuse fund and the substance misuse action fund, which come from Welsh Government. It's a true pot of money, and there is the area planning boards are mandatory. They have to exist and are attended by senior members of organisations, not just local authorities, all one local authority, but we have health, we have public Wales, we have Wales there, we have the police, crime commissioners. So we've got all key stakeholders around the table overseeing and governing the expenditure of that misuse action fund money. There's been quite an uplift this year in terms of funding towards substance misuse, which is a bit tricky to spend in some way. It's trying to get the balance right between what the board wants to see and what Welsh Government are happy to sign off and approve, so that it's about having that link and getting that balance right as well. However, they are about to go live with a new adult substance misuse service provision, and they are currently undertaking a needs assessment or to recommission a children and young persons substance misuse service as well. So lots of work going on, lots of activities, and significantly it was noting that Gwent is the only authority or the only area in Wales that has a full integrated pathway for substance misuse services, whereas and as a local authority look to it to actually that's you know, sort of a good example, and we want to follow that. It's not come without its issues and difficulties, but it's working. You know, the team, the area planning board team, work very hard to keep all those plates spinning, work with all the partners and key stakeholders to make sure that that integrated pathway continues and it works for the individuals at the hospital. And then finally, really, just to bring you on to next steps. The next steps is I'm really pleased to say that we're slightly ahead of schedule. We had kind of identified this current year to be the year where we moved everybody in and we got everybody bedded in and everybody settled and happy, but we managed to kind of reach that point around Christmas time, which was testament to the great work that all the staff and the managers involved in getting it ahead of schedule. So what we're now wanting to do is turn our attention to two key areas really. One is looking at quality and performance with what we already have, and wanting to make sure that we undertake key reviews within each part and we fully understand what is being provided and what are the areas that we want to change or improve on. And particularly if we feel that the evidence is not there to suggest that it's working as it is. So really taking some robust reviews of what we've already got. And the second part of the next step is about developing it further, growing the service area. As I've mentioned earlier, other teams will be joining us as we go forward. And I suppose really just about building that prevention culture, influencing that approach across the council really, because I think prevention applies to every service area and everybody can think about how they do things differently. But I think if we've got a very clear preventative and inclusive service area that can lead with some of those key messages and lead with some of those key examples about how we can do things differently that may benefit individuals and families better and much earlier, and can think about possibly, once we gather the evidence, is demonstrate the long-term savings to the authorities, which is what prevention approaches is all about. Also about running some key savings, but that's a longer-term reach. You know, it's not the here and now; it's about the long-term savings that we can bring. So they're the kind of two areas that we want to focus on going forward, and we're really excited and looking forward to getting stuck into all of that. And then finally, just to try and bring the report to life a little bit and feel the impact that some of our teams are making, I have put in place a few case studies, not for all of the services. I think the report would have just gone on and on and on, but just to give you a kind of a key snapshot of some of the things that are happening out there and some of the impact that the services are having. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. You've done extremely well, given the fact that we had 2 interruptions. And there we go. So well done. And you held your place and got straight back into it. I am impressed at that skill. I wish I had it. So, there we are. I'm sure there are. I know there's questions. And are there any questions?
We've got Councillor Rainey indicated in speak as well.
Okay, I'm going to think Councillor Pym first, followed by Councillor Ali Rainey, second. Councillor Pym.
Thank you, Caroline. It's nice to hear some positivity after the past few weeks. Yeah, I'm a big believer in prevention. I do believe that prevention at the early stages can make a big difference long term. You mentioned that you consider yourself to be rich in resources at the moment, which is nice to hear. What about facilities? How do you feel within Newport? I know that there are limitations within budgets at the moment, but planning forward over the next 5 years, 10 years, what facilities do you feel would help aid your programs and your staff, whether that be, you know, play areas, whether that be green spaces, whether that be buildings. Do you have a list or an idea moving forward? So what would help assist you? So, because it would be good, I think it'd be helpful for us as councillors to be able to be part of that and that plan, that project, and look to see what we can do over the next 5 years. So we're not getting to a stage where it's like, if we had that, then we could implement it. So if we had that, that would flourish. So across the city.
I mean, gosh, 5 years seems an awful long time, but certainly we've got a service area plan that covers the first 2 years of its life.
Yeah.
And it's that will, and I think I've brought that to you already. And that highlights the key areas that we want to focus on in the short term, the immediate term. And that's more about our interventions and the quality of interventions that we want to offer, more so than what do we need beyond that. Because I'm a real believer in the staff, the workforce themselves are the biggest asset we can have. Without them, we're nothing, we can't provide anything. So I'm a real believer in making sure that we've got the conditions right and we've got a motivated and stimulated workforce. And the way I like to work and the way that the managers will work with the work teams is it's really engaging, it's collaborative with the workforce. So actually they are part of helping us to shape the future. So that's the first thing I would say. A lot of the work that we do, probably the adaptation team aside, obviously, which is all about how we support people in their homes. A lot of the work that takes place will be in either people's homes. So, you know, it's very much about getting right into the heart of how people are living their lives and becoming part of their lives, really, so that they stay in control. It's not about them having to come into a professional building. So that's a really important point, and we want to maintain that. I think there's something about we really want to improve, and we've got very good links with education in schools, and we want to maintain that and we want to grow that. And an example of that is how we become more joined up with the in-route team that have now been launched within every school, where they've got a camp worker who are supporting teachers and education workers to manage mental health issues. So it's about joining up and making those links so that we're all working together. And if that means we work with the child or family in the school, we'll do that. The building side of things is probably not something that we foresee needing to grow. The only area we need building for is blind start. Blind start provision, where we have childcare provisions and play provisions. But what we want to do is, and this is where we need to link up, and we are linking in, I'm working very closely with the head of housing and community, David Walton, and we're looking at, you know, what community buildings already exist, and are they fit for purpose? Can we make greater use of them? For example, we've got community centres, you know, are we using them? In some cases we are, in some cases we're not. So there's a really big piece of work to do there about, rather than thinking we need new buildings at the cost of all this money, what we've already got. And I know that David is planning a review of the community centre provision to look at what's there, so that we can then start to link in how we support and complement each other, really. So I think probably for me, the biggest thing in the next 5 years is going to be how we grow our internal core services. And I think the important thing about partnership, how we link in and how we grow our partnerships. We've got some very, very strong partnerships already in existence. We want to grow them. We want to maybe access facilities from health. You know, for working to a partnership, it's not just about, well, we're the ones who've got all the buildings and have got to provide it. Actually, other partners may have that too. And that's something that I'd like to see improved.
Sorry.
It's just picking up on everything Caroline said, but it's rich in resources, because I think that's probably a little bit of a stretch.
I don't know, it's nice to hear. It's
Yeah.
very healthy in resources at the moment
I
then.
think part of the issue is picking up on Caroline's point, is about how we bring the different parts together. because one of the things that you will all be aware of as members is that little things pop up with different organisations, etc. And one of the challenges I think for Caroline and her staff has been about understanding that network of things that sometimes we risk duplicating for families. So the richer resources is about trying to bring all of that together really in a sense that we're not doing things twice, 3 times, 4 times. The infamous one is families who have 8 visitors in one day and then don't see anybody for 3 weeks. You know, it's trying to get that balance right. I mean, I think what we're really clear about is sometimes you have smaller projects that are lottery funded or possibly comic relief or children in need, then you have the police, then you have health, then you have us. And it's somehow about making that work together, isn't it? It's really important. But also recognising that it doesn't have to be the council that provides everything.
That's right.
The council needs to kind of perhaps have some sense of coordination and quality, but it's not necessarily up to us. It's about how we work with other organisations effectively.
I think that's where I was trying to take the question, that working with other partnership, other services, is do you have kind of an idea, like especially with kind of younger children and teenagers, is what you think that would help you, give you, provide your service over the next 5 years moving forward, whether they be mother centres, whether they be, not soft plays, but playgrounds, green spaces. What planning ahead, that if we had something in that area of Newport, that would be a massive help to us, because when we're engaging with these teenagers that struggle with schools, we can take them somewhere.
I think it's coming back to Caroline's point, is that very often it's not about the place that you go, it's about the individuals that work with them. If you get that bit right, place is much, much less important. And sometimes that's the challenge, because we, like all, that use of capital is hugely important. But the first bit we've got to do right is the people. Because if we have a building, but we have really miserable, grumpy staff in it, it's not going to help us. If we've got really staff who are able to engage with young people who don't want anything to know, grumpy, miserable young people possibly is the way to look at them, we're probably halfway there. The building will follow.
Yes, yeah. I'm going to bring in Councillor Aliwami. Councillor Aliwami, we can't hear you. No, we can't hear you. No. No.
Yeah. I would say, Councillor, if you leave the meeting and rejoin, it might solve the issue. It's a first point of trying that.
Yeah.
And we'll bring you back in as soon as we can.
No. Yes. Yeah. I will screen next. Councillor, are you hearing me? I'd love to hear you, but unfortunately we can't. So if you could hear me, what the advice is you sign out and then sign back in. Hopefully it'll cure it and then we can hear you. Thank you. Councillor Allen Screen.
Right, that's better. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Just 2 points of information, really, on page 17 and page 18. Page 17 starts to talk about a governance board being established, attended by a range of partners and stakeholders within the council. And I was just wondering whether that included representation from trade unions. And secondly, on page 18, it talks about creates uncertainty and anxiety amongst the workforce whilst waiting for the outcomes to be announced. You know, recommissioning programme creating this anxiety amongst the workforce. I'm just wondering what input has the trade unions have had on this. Thank you.
Yes.
So, thank you, Councillor Screen. I can answer that one on behalf of Caroline. So what we've done is we've established an internal for Newport board, which works with various representatives from across the council, and that's been looking at particularly the oversight of the budget, the oversight of the services and the recommissioning of the Families First services. Trade unions aren't represented on that board. It's very much an officers board, an internal officers board. In relation to the recommissioning Families First, that work is now completed, and when in terms of the impact on staffing, that was all to do with organisations where we commission services from, not from internal services. So it wasn't the staff that work for the local authority, it was the staff that work from the organisations that we commission from. And as part of that work, obviously where appropriate, matters such as 2P and so on were fully considered. But those were staff employed by different organisations, so a whole range of third sector organisations and health employed those staff. So union representation for them would have been with their own organisations and obviously through the unions linked to them, not through the union representation that we work with within the council.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I don't think Councillor McDowell Anyway in. No, I'm going to move on. Councillor Anyway, we can't hear you, so we're going to move on. Yeah, we're going to move on. Councillor Druitt, and then Councillor Cleverly after Councillor Druitt.
I'm really pleased to hear your report, Caroline, and you mentioned the successful amalgamation of the services for prevention and inclusion, and you also said the main focus for the next 12 months is going to be the quality of evidence and growing the service. But people and people relationships is very important.
You think that's so?
In all of this. How are you tackling the problem of recruiting staff with appropriate qualifications? Because that's key, I think, to all of that.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, I touched on the recruitment issue slightly earlier. There are national issues with recruitment in lots of professions, not just affecting my area, in adults and children's as well. What I can say is obviously there are national discussions going on with government and looking at how we can improve recruitment, particularly on social workers. And what we're trying to do is we're working hard at developing, having a very clear development and training plan, which I think wasn't there before. Not clearly, it was a bit ad hoc. So I know that the team manager for youth services, for example, is working really hard at two things: bringing youth services back under the Bronze Quality Mark, which is all about benchmarking and bringing it to standards, and then we'll work towards silver and hopefully we'll achieve gold. But within that, then it's also about how a lot of that work to achieve that benchmark is about how do we develop our staff and how do we support staff to improve and become qualified. So she's put together, and she's working on putting together a very clear plan where staff will be supported to access the relevant training, the relevant qualifications, so that they can start to get these qualifications themselves. And by that, I'm talking about people who won't have a youth and community qualification. They may have a play qualification, for example, that allows them to work with children in play settings, but actually we want to grow their skill and their breadth of knowledge. So by building out workforce in our own, we're growing our own, and we're trying to build a sustainable future, because actually we demonstrate to our staff that we value you, we appreciate you, we want you to stay, and this is what we can do to support you in your own professional development. But actually, that's a really good morale for staff, isn't it? And then we're more likely to be able to keep them. And they have a pathway to go, and they have a chance to develop themselves and increase their skill set and their knowledge. So that's certainly something we're certainly doing within youth and play services. And I know that in the early years, a similar plan is being worked on to increase the play work. For example, we do have issues with staff cover in the summer times when we're trying to run play provision and trying to pull in not just the right numbers of staff, but the quality of staff as well. You know, it's really important that we get the right people in place. So I think it's fair to say workforce development and training and development and qualifications is really at the heart of the manager's thinking at the moment, because we have to, because of the challenges that we've got.
Yeah, really good.
Okay, I'm going to try and bring in Councillor Aliwani again before I bring in Councillor Cleverly. Councillor Aliwani.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
We got you loud and clear.
Yeah,
Thank you,
oh,
Councillor.
result.
Well
Yeah,
done.
yeah. I thought it was my COVID actually that was stopping me being heard, but yeah. Right. Can I just say I very much welcome this initiative. Prevention, and inclusion, and in particular, shall I say, what I read in paragraph 4.2, although I hope, what actually happens in practice will actually, so now I've lost my agenda, Chair. I think I can remember what I can remember what I am trying to say, in the sense that in terms of the youth service rollout in Newport, and I can only speak about my own ward, Stowe Hill, who benefited greatly when we had the Communities First initiative. I know that is many years ago now. It's probably going back to 2003, but lasted quite a number of years, where actually the ward had youth provision. That since that initiative ended, and that is many years ago as well, I have not seen replicated necessarily by the council. Now, I do agree that, the council doesn't have to be the main provider always for things, but we enter into partnerships and all that. But what some areas in Newport, and I speak about my own ward in particular, I do not sort of perceive there is much of youth leadership or youth work or youth clubs that are going on in there, which is, the reason why last summer, for example, the ward experienced quite a bit of antisocial behaviour, which also sort of coincided, with the hot weather we were having and all that. So very much welcome that. I see that it is earmarked in phase 2 for this year. Can I just ask for, what sort of, what form will it take actually to see, that actually some youth provision, some youth. I seem to have lost the link now. Can you still hear me, Chair?
Yeah, we've got you back now. Now you're frozen.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you're back.
Right, back again.
You're back.
Yeah, the
Go ahead.
question is, Chair, and I spent quite a bit of time commenting. The question is, what form will it take, really, under this prevention initiative? What form will we see the youth work sort of manifesting itself in wards and visibility to the communities, to the local communities? What form will it take? What, for example, me as an elected member will see happening that so far I have not seen, without this sort of transition? Thank you.
Thank you. We're gonna,
Sorry, I can't actually hear properly because I haven't got the tandem.
That's okay.
reality.
That's no, that's fine. This is a team effort.
Just picking up is that this is very much about how we grow the youth service. And I think what we would recognise is that we have been through a period where perhaps it isn't quite what we would have wanted. And what Caroline's team is very much trying to do is grow a service across the city out of the resources that we have. And that work has started and is very much ongoing. And you'll already see that they've already established an increase in youth provision across the city in itself. But the bigger element, and I suppose picking up on your point, Councillor, about antisocial behaviour, is about constructing what we have in terms of outreach and inreach into communities. So rather than necessarily saying this community is going to, everybody's going to get the same, it's looking at the needs of each community and then looking at how we deploy the youth workers that we have over a particular time. Have we got enough youth workers to cover the whole of the city? No, we haven't. I mean, nowhere in Wales or England indeed would have that. But what we will have over time is the provision where we can go in and work in certain areas and target certain areas with specific pieces of work, for example, antisocial behaviour. That's not just about the youth service, that's working with the police, it's working with the youth justice team, it's working much more broadly to bring all of that together in an effective way. Okay.
If I could just come back on that, I know it's not really their job necessarily to deal with antisocial behaviour completely, but you know, I noticed that our young people had a lot positive to do. When we had youth work, a youth worker actually active in the ward and visible to the local community, and that is the thing that I believe had been missing since, you know, that particular provision ended. So I really, you know, couldn't sort of praise what was happening before compared to what we see now, in that there were positive action, positive role models happening, which has actually galvanized people who used to be actually quite negative in terms of what they were doing in the local community. So, you know, I honestly think the two are sort of very, very strongly interlinked.
And we really welcome that as an example of where a good youth worker can really offer a role model to a community, and that's the sort of information we want to hear in terms of services we would want to provide going forward. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cleverly, thank you for being so patient, Councillor Cleverly.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I've had terrible problems this morning logging on and my laptop's not working, so I'm on my tablet, so it's been a bit of a nightmare. But Caroline, thank you for your report. It's very interesting. And since the pandemic, I can see you've all worked really hard. So well done to all the teams across the board. Few questions I've got on the youth service, as you would expect. How many youth clubs have been reinstated across the city? Is there plans for an outreach team to target all these young people on the streets? Because this is what we need since lockdown, because they've gone quite berserk on the streets in most of the communities, like Mick Dad was just saying. And also, do you work in partnership with the schools? Because, and I know in Newport High School, in the library last week, we had 3 young boys in there causing problems, and they're just doing school for 1 hour a day. So for the rest of the day, they're causing problems in the community. So thank you. That's my questions.
Thank you. I don't know which one wants to take that.
Between us.
There we
Yeah.
go. Well done.
So it does count as not working, so I'm understanding. So in terms of the youth club provision across the city, we've managed to get 9 in place up to where we are today. That is still a work in progress. We're looking to enhance that significantly. and not just in terms of the numbers of youth club provision, but also the number of evenings that they're operating. And a lot of that just comes down to we haven't got the staff and resources in place just yet to be able to roll that out as fast as we would like to. But it's certainly within our plan and our thinking, and we will be looking to improve on that in the coming months. But we're quite pleased with what's been achieved so far quite quickly. Okay. So in terms of the outreach team, certainly as I've just talked about the youth clubs, hand in hand with that will be as soon as we've got a greater staff resource in place, and we'll release in staff from other areas of work that where they're tied up in, we plan to go hand in hand with youth clubs, but also have that presence in the community. So it's not just tied to building, but actually we have a youth worker present in community. And as I said earlier, particularly in areas where there's hotspots, so we're alerted to an area where there are some trouble or people are concerned, local community members of the community are getting concerned, we will want to respond with a targeted response and make sure that we have some presence in the community. And just start to build those relationships and links and try and decipher what might be going on for some of the youth, particularly in the area. Sometimes it simply is boredom and there's nowhere for them to go and nothing for them to do. Always is a really good example where we're looking at how to improve some of the issues in that area by linking in with youth justice and looking at the refurb work that's going on in the Allway Community Centre there right now, so that we can start to have greater provision and presence in that community centre again. So that's just an example of some of the things that we're trying to do.
And then so for the last bit, and just the last bit in terms of the link with education, we very much work with schools and in partnership with education. I think obviously where we are today, this is very much about prevention and the work we do. I think there probably is a place for a wider discussion jointly with ourselves and colleagues from education about what we're doing in terms of the provision for children in school and the hours of education that they have, for example, the children that you describe. And that might be something that we would want to consider for a later scrutiny to come back and look at. Because in effect, that's looking at that alternative provision that we and education need to work on together. Yeah.
Thank you, Sally. I've got one more question on the recruitment challenges. I know that the youth and community course in the university on the riverfront, only last week I had an email asking for like supervisors for their trainees, but you've got to be qualified on a JNC certain level. So I'm not sure if you have staff with that qualification at the moment, due to, since lockdown and they're trying to rebuild and all. But
we do have staff that are qualified. We absolutely have staff that are qualified and have those qualifications in youth work, that's key. But perhaps Councillor Cleverly, if you could forward us that email, just so that we could pick that up, that would be really helpful, because if they are looking for a connection with the university, yes, that course, we would really welcome.
Sally, I will send you an email on it, okay?
Yeah, if you could send it to myself and Caroline, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you all.
Yeah, again, it comes back to facilities. And again, that's something like give me a clip. This is her ward, and you did highlight Allway as another example of work going on in that ward. Because both those areas, from my experience, desperately lack play parks. Again, coming back to partnership work, what I was saying, that like the 5-year plan, are there plans for better sporting and leisure facilities in certain wards? Have those plans been discussed yet? And if so, are you working in partnership with Newport Live? Are you working in partnership with the Police Commission?
Yes and no is the answer to that. So our bit of the world is very much about prevention and inclusion. That wider universal provision for sport and leisure doesn't fall neatly to us. We obviously work very closely with those who do. And And I think our element of that will always be about the people that we put in place to match it, not the facilities per se. And that's where some of the mismatch comes. But do we work in partnership with those other parts of the council and other organisations? Absolutely, yes. I'm working on that all of the time. And Caroline's referred to already the work that we're doing with the new head of housing and communities and working alongside them to look at the provision that there is and the availability of it. But that whole arena of play and leisure and how you make that work across the city is obviously very much a work in progress for all of us.
Yeah.
I think we couldn't do anything on our own. Every area of this certainly strength inclusion is not in isolation. It's all embedded within partnership.
But these discussions are taking place. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Councillor Screen.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yeah, can I just one question, but can I just say that I appreciate the work that's been done in this area and in the report, and I think you've done a very, very good job. But my question is really a point of clarification. On page 25, you talk about Flying Start. I notice there's phase 1 expansion and phase 2 expansion. And I'm just wondering, there's nothing there for Dufferin, which is in my ward. And I know that some parts of Dufferin are very much low income families and so on. So just wondering why Dufferin is not included.
The answer is going to be Councillor Screen that we already have quite significant Flying Start provision within Dufferin. So much of the expansion is to other areas of the city in effect. So that in phase 1 and phase 2, looking at the expansion, it's broad, but Dufferin already has quite extensive Flying Start provision.
Yeah.
It hasn't. We can come back to you to clarify that and to give you the detail of that, no problem at all. But that's absolutely, the expansion is very much to grow across the whole city, and Dufferin already has basically that Flying Start provision.
Yes, I mean, I appreciate that. I know we got Dufferin Community Links in Dufferin, which provides child support and so on. But yeah, fine. Yeah, that's fine. Just to clarify that. Yeah, thanks very much.
Can I just? I've been quite lenient this morning. Can I just remind members not to specifically speak about your own wards? It's, you know, not specifically, because we don't want to turn this into a ward surgery scrutiny committee. Be general, look at what the citywide provision is. But you know, I can't fault your question. They've been great questions and good answers as well. I wait a long time to say this. Mr. Deputy, Mr. Mayor-elect, Councillor Watkins.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank Caroline for what she's done in this report. It's a very comprehensive report. I'd be interested to see, okay, so it's infancy at the moment, the last 12 months. And I'd be interested to see in 6 months' time, in 12 months' time, the outcomes which we have. The DFGs really that concerns me is at the beginning of this, there was a backlog because of the pandemic. Have we caught up with that? And obviously, are we going to expand that? Because according to the figures, there's quite a lot.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the backlog accrued purely and simply because of the COVID pandemic, we know that. And the team just continue to work really hard at trying to catch up. What we have managed to do this year, this financial year, is receive an increase in revenue, which is kind of, you know, a one-off piece of.
Don't tell everybody.
We have fortunately had an increase, and Again, it's been a little bit slower than we'd like because of the recruitment challenges, but I believe now the last interview took place about 3 weeks ago, and so we've got the additional staff in place, and the team manager does report to me that he believes that we will have cleared the backlog by the end of financial year or next financial year. I must correct that. I think it must be next financial year to allow staff the time to get in. So yeah, so by the end, certainly by the end of 2024, March 2024, it is anticipated that the backlog will be cleared, and then the team can start on an even footing. So that as the referrals are coming through, we can try and keep the momentum and keeping at pace with them.
One of the questions, and you mentioned about head of housing, but nothing about housing associations working with them in regards to basically antisocial behaviour, the police and crime commission does everything else, but no mention of housing associations.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're not building service area, and most of what we do is working with the people in them. But what we certainly do, we do have relationships and links with housing associations and private social
I
landlords.
was thinking about referrals from.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's probably not our strongest area. That's not to say we don't get any, but it's something that we can certainly look into and strengthen our links with them. I know that the manager for DFG particularly is really keen. That's what I mean about his thinking is now, he's starting to think about areas that he can reach out into. But I think he's had to go at a pace where there's no point building links and attracting a huge amount of referrals when we've already got a massive backlog. So it's about the two things running hand in hand. Let's clear the backlog, build those links, develop those partnerships, which I know is exactly what Dale is doing, and then encourage a wider breadth of referrals, I think, coming in. So one of the things we want to do is attend carers groups in the community, so that, you know, over 50s or, you know, 60s, whatever, but, you know, we want to make links with community networks so that you can talk about the provision that's available and make sure that people are aware that referral can come in if they feel that they need some support at home or to stay in their own home. You know, there's lots of hidden cohorts of our communities who won't know about services that are available and think they're probably not entitled to anything anyway, but actually that earlier reach is so important to stop them down the line needing that higher tier of support. So in short, the answer is you're right. I think it's an area of the development for us, and I'm confident that we will achieve it.
Following on from that, Chair, about expansion of the area which you're covering. Are you looking to expand or bringing in other organisations?
I think, to be honest, we haven't got that far yet. Do you mean the service area as a whole, or are you talking about DFG specifically?
No, service area as a whole. Whether you're looking, whether you find there is an issue or a requirement to absorb another organisation.
Yeah. I don't think that's been part of our thinking at this stage, certainly. I think first and foremost, we wanted to get our own house in order within our own local authority. That's very much what we've been focusing on doing. And that goes hand in hand with partnership working and making sure that we're all working together on the same page. In terms of bringing other organisations into our prevention and inclusion, probably not. I think it's more about working in partnership. I think if we go back to the point Danny mentioned earlier about it's not about the council doing everything, you know, and I think that's right. I think what's key is that we work efficiently and effectively with those other organisations so that we can support each other and make sure we're working towards the same aim and the same goal, and utilising the resources that both organisations want. I think that would probably, given the culture and the climate of local authorities at the moment, I think that's probably the way we'll go.
Okay, thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Davis.
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate what everybody has said. I mean, the report is very informative and you've done it well.
Thank you.
Commended for that. What I'm thinking of goes back to what McDad said earlier with regards to youth clubs. Not necessarily about youth clubs being in the area, but areas having role models. Because I think what I've noticed is that we're in a situation where we've got a lot of young teens that are getting involved with other people, possibly because there's no role model at home. And I think that is an area that you could look into in the sense of with youth clubs, having that role model, because I find that children that end up getting into older people who get into trouble, I mean, I've noticed it myself, the young lads, Dinas, drugs, etc. To have, they do it, one, because they're bored, but two, because it gives them a sense of belonging. And I think that's where youth workers will come into their own, because if they're good, they can actually put that into the community, so the youngsters no longer need to feel as if they have to belong somewhere else.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, at the heart of everything we do, it's very much a culture that I lead from, because I believe in it passionately, is about the relationships, which is what you mentioned earlier, Councillor Brewitt, but also the relationship. And we put a lot of emphasis on role model. We probably refer to it sometimes as the trusted adult. Yeah, so there's real positive presence in a child's life, particularly when we know that there's all sorts of traumatic experiences that might be going on at home or in their own family life. So those trusted adults and those role models can be anywhere. They can be in school, they can be in youth clubs, they can be on the street. You know, it's all about how we want to engage and connect with these young people and allow these young people a chance to face to face and to have their voice heard. And the way, particularly youth work, they're very, very good at it, but I was going to, you know, all professionals in social services, I think it's the core of how we operate, is making sure that we engage in a meaningful way so that that trust is there, it's developed, but it's skillfully to do it in a way where we're not brooding or building dependency, because that's the real risk, isn't it? Where you're bringing in that trusted adult, that role model, and then you form a really good relationship. Inevitably, professionals will move on or things change. So there's something about the work we do, the intrinsic work we do, is about skilling young people and helping them to understand the nature of changing relationships in their lives, whilst at the same time holding them safe and letting them be heard.
Yeah, I think you're right there in giving them the tools that those adults can give the children the tools they need to be able to go through life and be able to get work and have successful relationships. There was something else I was going to say, but I've completely forgotten about. I did notice in the report though as well that it was up to 25-year-olds you'd be working with. Why 25?
That just seems to be, I'm not sure why, I'm telling you the history, but certainly I do know that is traditionally the point that you work sector, and certainly what we try to do is that's youth work, but within the wider services, what we try to do is run a family approach. So rather than aim team, we're working with a family and whoever's in that family. Youth work particularly have always been 0 to 25, 25, yeah, 0 to 25. I don't know why that is. I'll be very honest with you, but that's what I've always done. It's
an education thing, isn't it? There's a dependency at 25, and 25 and under is classed as dependent. It's spreading for the right word, but 25 and over, you're not for some reason.
It's that young adult bucket.
Yeah, it's that type of thing. Just a second, Councillor Druitt first, then I have Councillor Aliwemi.
Could I just interject? Sorry, I've got another meeting I need to be at for 11:30. Is it okay to be excused?
Yes, of course it is.
So the last that get them.
Thank you for your contribution, Councillor Flowering.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Councillor Brewer.
Just to follow on from Councillor Davis's question, can you say more about the substance misuse teams and what priority you're placing on those, but in the light of the last question as well?
In terms of priority, absolutely equal priority. You know, there's no one area that's more important than others, in my view. They all have an equal impact. They are all headed up by excellent managers, in my view, who are taking their services forward and developing their vision with their workforce. Substance misuse, it's a regional team, so that's what makes this a little bit different. So what we're responsible for in terms of being the lead and the banker for managing the funding that comes through, the area planning board team are the commissioning team that oversees all the commissioning and the contracts that are put in place to deliver all of the misuse services across Gwent. So what we have is we have a range of services within an integrated pathway. So we have an open access, we have adult services, we're just about to commission specialist children's services, and then we also have the tier 4 provision, which is the detoxification and the rehabilitation program, so that's the higher end cost services. And it's a partnership with criminal justice and health and local authorities, and what we try to do in many ways is have a journey for anybody who's got substance misuse issues, starting from a child, a teenager who may be experimenting for the first time, and it might be getting slightly out of control or causing some concern, having input at that level. But then the journey for anybody who comes in at any stage, what we want it to do is be seamless, we want it to be supportive, right up to the end point where if somebody ends up needing more intensive, costly packages. So I think it's about the journey. It's about making sure that at whatever stage it's quality, it's seamless, you're supported, you're not judged, and all those things that will go hand in hand with how we want to support people who may have substance misuse issues or drug issues. And actually, just really a really nice sort of point to very quickly is they have just celebrated 12 peer mentors who have successfully completed their training and have got their certificates and awards. Now, peer mentors are people who access services themselves, so we support them. They come through their own recovery, and then they get to a stage where they're invited to become a peer mentor, supported with training, and then they can. Well, what they feel is actually it gives them a chance to give something back, to do that unpaid position. They just volunteer. But actually, for many of them, what I see and what I read about is how it turns their lives around and actually helps them to move away from the way they lived their life previously. And they may be relapses, and that's part and parcel of recovery with substance use. But the powerful stories are incredible to read in terms of how people turn their lives around. We've just submitted a story around that award ceremony into the staff newsletter. So hopefully we'll see that come out soon. But it's just a real powerful story of what people go through and then how they can come out the other end. And actually our little bit in that is just helping them to get from there to there. You know, they're the ones that do the work.
Chair, it's a big little bit though. Thank you for that really positive answer.
Councillor, are you angry?
Thank you. Further to the agenda, top of page 26, please. Where we are talking about, we have a key commitment for Newport regarding the expansion of the Welsh medium provision. Can I ask, sitting here 12 months from now, looking about what we have been
Councillor, can I stop you a second?
Can I ask what? Sorry.
Sorry, Councillor. Your audio
the sound quality, I'm afraid, is really poor. But I think I will do.
Councillor, are you
You can
with
still
me?
give me a question.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I cannot make anything you say.
yeah, no, that's fine. We can't hear you, councillor. I'm for, I'd love to hear you.
It's a question.
Yeah.
I'd love, there's
hear you either.
an issue. It sounds like it's down a well almost, and then you're breaking up. It's, we're missing the important.
Again. Leave a little back again.
Okay, thank you, councillor. Okay,
If that's the next issue, I'm sure
well,
we'll
we'll,
have a great answer.
no, don't worry, we'll sort something out. There's always another way. Are there any other questions for the officers today? I mean, the committees asked some, well, I think were very, very intriguing and brilliant questions. I'm not going to ask any questions to be done here. I could, but I'm not going to go to this session because I think you've answered the majority of questions. You've really put some, I suppose, some flesh onto the bone here for us. You've made this service area come alive for us, and we're intrigued now to monitor it and to scrutinise it, and to be, you know, successful partners working in a critical way. Critical way? Positive.
Positive.
Yeah,
It's a good.
you know,
Positive.
positive. What's it called? We want to be your critical friend. There we go. You ain't getting it in the end, but thank you so much for your attendance this morning. We do have Councillor Aliwami back. I want to give him one last go because I'm desperate to hear what he has to say. Councillor Aliwami, have another go.
I don't know, can you hear me now, Chair?
A little better.
Can you hear me?
The tone is not right. We will get, if we will, no, the tone's not right. So I'm going to leave you now, and I'm going to ask you to just have a listen to what we have to say, and maybe you can send an email and we can get you the answer back, because we'd like to hear your question.
Can I just, I'm happy
No
to.
problem.
Yes,
By email.
that's fine. Thank you, Councillor. Okay, we're going to let you go and get about your work. The only one thing I would say is we're still waiting for our, what are we waiting for?
We find it.
Well, I know what it is. I'm not happy yet.
Just a few bits of information.
Sally.
Me and Sally are working closely together anyway, so.
Okay, okay, good. The month is ticking on.
Thank you.
We are in March, nearly.
Well done, I mean.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. Okay, we just did the desk. Yes. Okay. Item 5. That's over to you.
I'd say, to be honest, Chair, because it was an information only report, we can forego item 5 because there's no comments or recommendations.
Okay, item 6.
That's me again, my apologies. Just a little update on our action sheet and our work programme for the remainder of this fiscal year, if you will.
Yes.
Obviously, we've had that update from quite Sally for the work programme, the action sheet, my apologies. I am facing things, we will have it back.
Yeah.
Before the end of the cycle. In terms of the work programme, there's only a very, very slight change. With Sally's request that our information session where we're supposed to take 4 items, the eliminate, update, a piece of work on step up, step down, the work being done with registered social landlords and the unregistered children's placements. Sally's asked, could we please move the step up, step down item to the next meeting, which will be in anyway, only because the report author wouldn't be able to produce that in time because they have annual leave, and because it's going to be a huge bit of work. So if committee's happy with that, it would be on the 14th, eliminate registered social landlords and unregistered children, and then on the 28th, the disabled parking bays and step up, step down. We're happy?
Are we content?
Yes.
We are content.
That's my bit said and done.
So we've got the date of the next meeting, which is the 14th of March. And then a further one on the 28th of March. And so thank you very much for your attendance this morning. Thank you for your patience, and may you have a great day ahead of you. So thank you from me, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
I've got to be honest,
It's
it's taken that
It's good, but no, I
the
think this the top chocolate, the biscuits.
interesting.
It was good.
I enjoyed that. And I was
Did you enjoy it?